Hey you guys, it's Elena here. Welcome back to my channel, Every Day with Elena. I talk about everything lifestyle, healing, single motherhood, and some of the fun stuff along the way. If this is your first time joining me, welcome. I'm so happy to have you here. Today we're going to talk about a topic that is very near and dear to my heart, which is grief after the loss of a loved one. Let's get into it.
Let's rock, let's rock.
Can you ride for me? Oh, baby, not stopping me. Can you take it to the top of me? I just wanna love you, baby. Always thinking, loving you, baby. Can you roll with me? Oh, baby, all over me. Can you take control of me?
If you've been following me for some time now, you might already know a little bit about my story, which is about the loss of my boyfriend when I was 24 years old. I already had 4-year-old Noah, and I started dating somebody who was extremely special to me. He just stood out in a different type of way. And it was really true what they say about when you know, you know. It really felt like I knew and it felt like he knew. We had a connection that was unlike anything that I've ever had before. And I have yet to find a connection similar to that. Within just a few months of us meeting, we had already been planning marriage. We were planning more children. We were a unit. We were excited to be together. We knew that this is what we wanted. And I, at the time, was in grad school. I was already a single mom. I had my son whenever I was 19 years old. So I really had to grow up fast. And at that time in my life, I just felt ready to meet the right partner, to hopefully settle down and have more children, have an active father for my son. And I had experienced different types of relationships before that were not so great or didn't last or just didn't seem like the right fit for myself and or my child. When I met Dustin, he changed all of that. He brought into us exactly what I was looking for and something that I couldn't find anywhere else. The relationship moved really fast and we were in love really quickly. We moved in. Well, I won't say we moved in together. We were practically living with each other by the end of the first week. We became pretty inseparable. He had a son from a previous marriage who was the same age as Noah. Both boys were 4 years old and it felt perfect. We did everything together and couldn't have told me that just a few months later, this man that I had fallen in love with so quickly, who I would see myself marrying and having more children with, would pass away within just a few short months of us meeting. So in October of 2010, my boyfriend Dustin unexpectedly passed away of a heart attack. Many people ask if I knew that he was sick. And the answer is no, I didn't know. I was aware that he had dealt with some heart problems in the past, but from the information that he had given to me, all of those problems and issues were taken care of, and he was taking care of himself. I had no idea how bad it actually was, and I don't know that he knew either, and I think that's something I'll never get an answer to. Again, I was 24 years old. He was 7 years older than me, so he was 31, which is still very young for someone to die of heart issues. So as you can imagine, it took everyone by surprise, me, his family. It was completely unexpected and not something that I had seen him struggle with. He was very athletic. He was very outgoing, very active. We did a lot of things together that were active. So you can imagine how shocking this was. The entire episode happened right in front of me, right in front of 4-year-old Noah, and right in front of his son, who we happened to have with us that weekend. And it is a memory that is etched in my brain for the rest of my life. When it comes to the trauma of what happened that day, of remembering what happened that day, there are still things to me that are blurry. There are still things to me that I don't remember. There are still things that Noah remembers from his 4-year-old self to now being 18 that I don't remember happening. So this obviously changed the course of my life for the rest of my life. This changed my perspective on everything. And this changed who I am as a human being. Trauma like this, grief, loss of a loved one, especially somebody who you might be very close to, someone who you may have grown up with or just had a really, really deep love for, can really affect your mind and your body in so many different ways. You'll absolutely never be the same. And for me, this was something that I learned, was that I will never be the same. It has now been 14 years. We are going on 14 years this October since the passing of my boyfriend. And I have done a ton of work in the grief realm over the years. I have been able to do a lot of healing. I have done a lot of counseling, a lot of therapy, a lot of different types of healing modalities, and different ways to really find peace within my body and peace within my mind when it comes to the loss of someone that I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with, not knowing that he indeed was going to spend the rest of his life with me, but it was going to be really quick. One of the things that my grief counselor told me in one of our first sessions was, you have to wrap your head around the idea that you're never going to see this person again in this lifetime. And whenever he said those words to me, it was the most painful yet factual statement that anybody could have made to me. When we go through something like grief, it's very normal for us to feel like we're in between worlds. It's very normal for us to feel like everything is surreal. Things are not real. I'm kind of just moving through this space of life, right? I'm here, but I'm not really here. This was the most painful, tragic moment of my life. And it was the worst pain that I ever felt. All I knew was that I had to get help. All I knew was that I needed to feel good again. I needed to feel like me again. And I didn't know how that was going to happen, nor did I realize that I would never really be that version of me again. The version that I was up until that morning no longer exists. And I didn't know that I would spend years trying to get that version of me back. And recognizing over time and throughout my healing and where I am now that that version of me is never coming back. And that's okay, because I've grown and evolved over time, and it has given me an exponential amount of growth, of compassion, of love, of perspective, of knowledge, of wisdom, so many things that I have actually gained from the experience. Now, that is absolutely not to say that I'm happy the experience happened. We go through these things and it's never going to be something that we are proud that happened or that we're happy that happened. But it's important after we go through them to learn what we can take with us from the experience that can then go into helping other people. With this being such a big part of my story, it is something that I have always wanted to help others with and wanted to help others move through grief. If you or someone you know is grieving a loss of a loved one, please stick around. I'm going to give a few different ways to heal through grief and a few different ways to find hope and love within yourself and care and to be able to move forward. You're never going to get over it, but you can learn to get around it. You will learn how to live with it. You will learn how to live with it, move through it, and eventually come to a place where you can share your story with others who will be so grateful to hear from you and to hear your story and to hear what you have shared. Whenever I was going through this experience, within the first few months thereafter, I was looking for anything that I could get my hands on to make me feel better. And that was reading books. That was listening to things that were positive or that made me feel better. That was watching movies on grief. That was, at the time, blogs and newsletters were a lot bigger. Instagram didn't even exist yet. So this was the days where more Facebook ruled everything, Twitter, YouTube, of course. And so I was looking through those platforms, trying to find anything that I could that would just help me. I remember walking through Barnes and Noble whenever, of course, bookstores were still a really big deal at that point and they weren't going out of business. I was walking through Barnes and Noble, just looking for anything, I would go through the spiritual sections. I would go through the self-help sections, grief sections, anything that I could find that I felt was going to help me in this situation, that it was going to help my mind, that was going to ease my pain, that was going to give my heart some sense of, okay, it's going to be okay. And when I think back to that 24-year-old girl who was a single mom trying to raise a 4-year-old boy while she's grieving, who was at the time the love of her life, who she thought she was going to marry. She's in grad school. She's trying to work a full-time job. There's so many things that she is trying to do to just keep her shit together, just to keep her emotions together. And there were very many times that she did what she could to avoid those emotions, but at the same time, she knew she had to feel them. And I'm so thankful for whatever wisdom I had inside of me at that young of an age to know that this was something I wanted to work through and move through. And I told myself, when I get to the other side of this, I'm going to help other people in some form or fashion through their grief. Walking through Barnes and Noble. When I get to the other side of this, I'm going to write a book. In 2016, I wrote and published my first version of this book, 98 Days, 98 Ways. So 98 days was basically the duration of our relationship. And for a long time, I felt a lot of shame around it because I felt as though I couldn't help people grieving the loss of a loved one because I had only known my lover for 3 months. And so I felt like, well, maybe my story doesn't matter. Maybe it's not as deep as others who had been with their partners for years upon years, who had been married, who had children together. And so for a long time, I felt very insecure about sharing my story and then saying, oh, but we were only together for 3 months. And what I've learned over the time is that doesn't matter because I'm here almost 14 years later and I can still see and feel the deep pain that I felt at that time because I also remember the deep love that we shared and the deep connection that we shared. And nobody gets to take that away from me. Nobody gets to take that away from me. So it doesn't matter the amount of time that you might have known someone. It doesn't matter what the relationship was that you might have had with them. What matters is that there was love there. There was some type of bond. There was some type of connection. And after they passed away, you knew your life was never going to be the same and you were going to have to figure out a way to get around this. So back to the book. So the part 1 is 98 days. The first part goes into a lot more detail of how we met, our relationship, things I loved and adored about him, things about him that really made me smile. And then it goes more in depth into what happened the day that he passed away and how I remember that day. And then it goes from there on the following years and what it took for me to heal. It goes through the emotions and the ups and downs of the grief, ups and downs of the grieving process, where there were moments that I was happy and smiling again to the moments that I was throwing myself on the floor out of nowhere because grief just showed up, because it would just creep up on me. I share a bunch of stories of dreams and post-life connections, right? So things that stood out to me after he passed away that I considered to be supernatural signs from him. And I share a lot of those things in this book as well. And then part 2 is 98 ways to heal from the loss of a loved one, 98 ways to grieve. So again, I wrote the original version and published it in 2016. So this was the original version, the hard copy version. And here recently, over the last year, I decided I wanted to revamp the book. I wanted to expand it. I felt like there was so much more that I could add to it. So I opened it back up. I read through it cover to cover and realized that when I wrote and published the book back in 2016, at that point, it had only been 6 years since I lost him. And unbeknownst to me, my healing was not done. And I don't know that the healing is ever done, but it wasn't in a place where I was ready to share more. And it wasn't in a place where I could expand on a lot of the thoughts that I put into the book. It wasn't in a place where I could share different types of personal experiences, things that I was trying to keep safe in some sense that I wasn't ready to share with the world. Things that I felt that if I shared, a part of the sacredness of the relationship would be gone. And that is just a part of the grieving process. Here I am, 13 years later, and I decide to read the book cover to cover and go back into it and just expand. And I was able to give so much more detail. I was able to give so much more because I had come so much further in my healing, because I had overcome so much, because I had been through other things since then, because I had done so much more work on myself and on my grieving process and learning myself as a person, becoming self-aware. And through this time, noticed how much my heart has grown, how much more I have to give because of the healing over time. And so I've gone back, I've edited the book, I've expanded it, I've added some chapters, I've added some more detail to certain chapters, I've changed up a few things in the 98 ways part, and I'm really, really excited about it and excited for you to read it. So if you ever did read the original copy, thank you so much, and thank you for your support. I really hope that you will find some interest in the new edition. Right now, it's only available as an ebook. I am working on making it into a physical copy. Right now, it is only available as an ebook through my Stan stores. I have the link underneath this video to my Stan store, and it should be the top product on my Stan store. Obviously, I will happily let you know when the physical copy is ready and any other versions that I decide to come out with the book. So I hope you'll read it. I hope you'll love it, or you'll share it with somebody who is grieving the loss of a loved one and could use something that just gives them an ounce of hope. So before I close, I do want to share a couple things from the 98 ways part. Now, again, I am sharing from the original version. The first way that I'm going to share is don't let anybody tell you how you should feel. There's no right or wrong when it comes to your feelings. Nobody can tell you how to feel at any given time. Some will tell you to stop sulking, and others will be ashamed that you are smiling. This is your grief. Handle it in the way that makes sense to you. These are your feelings, and you have the right to own them and trust them and feel them. Only you know how to take care of you in the healthiest way. It's not up to anyone else. That's a really, really big one. Nobody gets to tell you how to feel during your grief. Nobody gets to tell you what you should or should not be doing during your grief unless it's something that is harmful to yourself, harmful to your body, or harmful in your healing process. Aside from those things, it's your grief. You get to decide how to manage it. Another way that I'm going to share, and I'm sure that you've heard this many times or seen it on social media, but grief to recovery is not a straight line. It's more like a roller coaster. You will have moments where you feel completely confused and others where you have some sense of clarity. You will have days where you can smile and you will have days that you don't want to leave the house. You may cry one moment and laugh the next, or be joyful one moment and angry the next. These emotions are completely normal. Grief can hit you at any time of day, even when you least expect it. I can't tell you how many times grief would hit me when I was just not expecting it, or felt like I was in a good mood, or I was having a good day, or I was having a good week, and all of a sudden I'm driving down the road and a song comes on and I start punching the steering wheel because I'm so upset because the song is bringing back memories that can only be memories. So it's things like that that might just hit us out of nowhere, or we might feel angry and we don't even know why. Our brain may not even be thinking thoughts of this person. We may not be thinking about our grief or thinking about the person that we lost, but maybe we just feel angry, or so for some reason we just feel sad, or we can't seem to figure out what it is. And this is something that happened to me a lot around the anniversary of his passing, as well as the monthly anniversaries within the first year. So within the first year, of course, there wasn't an annual anniversary just yet, but the monthly date of his passing would come up and I would feel a lot of different things. The annual passing, I share in here feelings that came with every year that I passed another anniversary. Even just recently, which is very interesting to me, within the last couple of weeks, I had some moments where I was feeling extremely sad, extremely angry, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. I was thinking to myself, okay, I know there are some things that I am frustrated about in my personal life, but I have control over those things. So what's going on? What am I sad about? And I mean, it really just took a lot of deep reflection. And I still couldn't figure it out. And it wasn't until I took a look at the date and realized it was the date that I had met Dustin. I realized it was the date that I had met Dustin 14 years ago. And I think because a part of me is still looking for the right person, the right relationship, and for the right man to come along. And it is something that's in the back of my mind. So this time of year can remind me of when I met the person who was the right person at the time. So it was amazing to me to make that type of connection. 14 years later, you just never know when it's going to hit you. And I no longer long for him. I don't grieve him in the way that okay, you guys. The light just keeps going off and I'm starting to think this is a sign. I don't know about you. I'm starting to think like, okay, Dustin, are you here? Okay, I'm going to turn the light back on. So things like that happen a lot to this day. I grieve the experience. I get sad about the experience. I get sad when I think about what I went through. I get sad when I think about those types of things. I actually also smile when I think about him. I smile and I laugh. And I think what does bring the tears to my eyes now is being so grateful that I had that experience with him. And there's also the part of me that is sad that he didn't get to continue in this lifetime. But that's not up to me. All right, we're going to look at one more way. This one is to write your higher power a letter. Now, I just want to give a brief preface to this. Your higher power is your higher power. And I fully believe and support that. So on this channel, I am fully supportive of all spiritual beliefs, all religious beliefs. Whenever I say things like this, like your higher power, your higher self, God, the divine, the universe, whoever, whatever you believe in, I want that to feel true to you. All right. We can pray and we can meditate, but sometimes it is just easier to write it down. Sometimes in prayer, we don't have all the words because we just don't know what to say anymore. We don't know what to ask for. In a time like this, it feels as though nothing will bring us happiness. No matter what we pray for, it feels as though we will never feel joy or love or peace again. Ever. And it hurts so badly. Write down everything you need to. Ask why this happened. Ask what the purpose was. Ask all of the questions you need answered. Say what you're feeling. Say what is on your mind. Say what you want to feel and what you want to see. Ask for strength. Ask for peace. Ask for faith. Ask for love. I will do a part 2 with a few more ways, and I will do a couple pages of reading of the first part of the book as well. And if you have any questions about anything regarding grief, your grief or the grief of someone else, please feel free to ask. If you have any questions regarding my story, please feel free to ask, and I'll be happy to address those things in another video. I also plan to do a video for supporting someone who has lost someone, because I know for me, I had friends in my life who, thank goodness, were there for me. And I don't think they really always knew what to do. And I think that it's important when you do have someone in your corner, or if you are in somebody's corner and you just want to help them and you want to help them get through their grief, and you know that there's nothing you can do to bring that person back, right? Which is ultimately what they want. But anything you can do to support them through it and help them heal and to love them through it, I'll be happy to make a video regarding that as well. And I'll also include some things you don't want to say and don't want to do. All right. Thank you so much for watching this video with me today. I hope you'll take a look at my book. I'm so proud of the new expanded version. Again, it's linked in my Stan Store beneath this video, and it's called 98 Days, 98 Ways. Also, please like, share, and subscribe. This lets the algorithm know that you like to see videos from me. I have a lot of topics of things that I want to share with you all, and I promise to get those rolling out, okay? Thank you. Once again, my name is Elena. This is Everyday with Elena. Have a beautiful day. And if you are grieving or know somebody who is, I'm sending you so much love. And I promise you will find healing and you will get to the other side. Thanks for watching.
Love